Welcome to the Strategy Skills Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Farova, and our podcast sponsor today is strategytraining.com. If you want to strengthen your strategy skills, you can get the overall approach used in well-managed strategy studies. It's a free download, and you can get it at firmsconsulting.com/overall approach. You can also get McKinsey and BCG winning resume, which is a resume that got offers from both of those firms. And you can get it at firmsconsulting.com/resume PDF. And the last gift from me for today is a copy of a book we co-authored with some of our clients. It is called 9 Leaders in Action. It went to #1 bestseller on Amazon, and you can get it at firmsconsulting.com/gift. And today we have with us Dr. Tiffany Moon. Dr. Moon is a board-certified anesthesiologist and entrepreneur, and was the first medical doctor on The Real Housewives. Welcome, Tiffany. So great to have you with us.
Hi, Chris. Nice to be here.
So your career spans medicine, entrepreneurship, media. What was the defining moment that made you expand beyond anesthesiology?
I wasn't really looking to expand my career outside of anesthesiology. I think when the pandemic happened and I found myself with a little more time on my hands, that's when I started my luxury candle company, Aromasthesia. And then social media followed just because I was making funny TikToks with my kids. And then Bravo TV came knocking at my door and asked me if I wanted to be a real housewife. So these are all opportunities that were presented to me because I think I was open to them and I like trying new things. But I never intentionally said like, oh, I'm going to branch outside of the hospital and go be on TV. Those are not intentional decisions.
So talk us through that time when you were offered to be on a reality TV show. Was it a difficult decision to make? What went through your head?
The reason I got offered to be on Real Housewives is because one of my friends had been on the show for many, many years. And I had been to several events that were taping and caught the eye of some of the producers. And they asked her about me and said, who's your friend Tiffany? Would she ever be interested in being on the show? And she's like, oh no, Tiffany's a doctor. She's got, children at home. Like she doesn't want to do this. They were like, asking her to nudge me year after year. And I'd be like, no, I'm not interested. And then finally, like the third time she asked me, I was like, okay, I will talk to them, but no promises. And of course, now the rest is history.
So what happened once you agreed?
Well, people think that when you go on reality TV, maybe the cameras just follow you around 24/7. That's not the case at all. At least with my show, the filming is very scheduled. They actually give you a call sheet at the beginning of every week that says what days you'll be filming. And the thing is, when I was filming for Real Housewives, I was still working full time as an academic anesthesiologist. So basically Mondays through Fridays, I was in the operating room. I couldn't film except for the evenings and weekends. The only time I could film during the weekday is if I took overnight call. And then, the day that you go in that night, that day you're pre-call, so you're available. And then you're post-call available, but often like a zombie because on call, maybe you just sleep like 1 or 2 hours, sometimes just 20 minutes. So there was like a few filming that when I saw it back on TV, I was like, oh, I kind of don't remember that day. They say that sleep deprivation is the same as like drinking alcohol, right? Like they do those car tests where they deprive people of sleep overnight and have them drive. And they make the same kind of mistakes as people who have a blood alcohol concentration that's like over the legal limit of 0.08. So, there were times that I was sleep deprived and filming for Housewives and drinking all at the same time. So that's probably why I don't remember. Or it was just so traumatic, I've decided to block it out from my memory. I have no idea.
Was it difficult to balance your professional brand and your professional career with being a reality TV persona, which comes with all kinds of challenges?
Yeah. I talked to one of my older mentors in medicine when I was presented with the opportunity to be on Housewives. And I said, hey, I kind of got this once in a lifetime opportunity and I'm thinking about doing it. Should I do it? And their advice was not to do it for professional reasons. They said, you've gone to so much school, you've worked so hard, made so many personal sacrifices, and you're going to throw it all away for some silly little TV show. And I was like, okay, hold on a second. Like, let's dissect this a minute. Like, what do you mean by throw it all away? Like, whether I go on the show or don't go on the show, like, are my qualifications the same? I graduated at the top of my medical school class, went to one of the best anesthesia residency programs in the country, was one of the youngest faculty members. Like, nothing you do, I mean, short of like, criminal things or whatever, can take those things away from you. And I think there's a little bit of a double standard when women choose to do things outside of medicine and they're criticized for it. They're seen as not taking their job as seriously. People love to weaponize the use professionalism against women. Like if they're doing something that they don't like, they just call it unprofessional. And my whole thing about this is like what I choose to do when I'm outside of the hospital, as long as it's not like ethically or morally wrong or hurting someone, like that's my business. That's not your business. And it doesn't affect how good of a doctor I am when I go back to work the next day. But I've personally been the target of people weaponizing professionalism against me and calling me unprofessional for things such as, doing dances with my kids on social media, posting about luxury handbags and skincare and makeup. People have definitely said things to me.
Many business leaders listening to us right now feel uncomfortable about public scrutiny and would like to know how to manage it better, especially as they're becoming more and more senior. What did being on a high-profile TV show teach you about managing public perception?
Oh, wow. That's such a good question. I always tell people, like, if you're a nice, good person, you have nothing to worry about. It's the people that generally aren't always nice, good people who get caught on television saying something that they probably shouldn't have said. And then there's this quote unquote cancel culture. You know what I mean? And yes, reality TV does sometimes take things out of context. Yes, reality TV, when you're filming for it, they encourage you to drink so that you become uninhibited and, say or do things that you might not otherwise. But I always say alcohol just brings out your inner self. Like it just takes away that outer shell of facade. But it doesn't, like if you're not an angry person, which I'm not, and I drink, I don't become an angry person. Like it doesn't change who you are, at least not to me. I mean, alcohol affects different people differently. But I think what you have to be careful of when you choose to go on a reality TV show where you're public facing is that there are people looking up to you and you have to conduct yourself in a manner that upholds the values that you have. Like I knew that when I went on Housewives that I wasn't going to, drink too much and say bad things that would get me canceled and be mean to people. Like because I know myself, and so I wasn't worried about it. But it always amazes me how some people think that they can go on TV and get away with bad behavior and like the public won't notice. It happens time and time again. They're like, I was drinking, or they took it out of context, or that's not what I meant, just excuse after excuse.
What surprised you? Once you started filming, you became part of this. What surprised you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it sounds so naive now, but I didn't realize when I agreed to go on the show that there was going to be so much conflict and fighting. I grew up in a traditional immigrant Asian household where generally there was no conflict. Not that there was no tension, there was just no outward conflict. We didn't like yell at each other across the dinner table. And so what surprised me was just how much the producers wanted us to fight. Like they were constantly pitting us against each other. And in many ways, it brings out the worst in you. You sometimes hang out with a toxic group of people and you become toxic too.
How did you manage this?
Well, I quit after one season. I removed myself from the situation. These days I do a lot of work around work-life balance. I'm speaking. And people always want to hear me talk about certain topics. And right now, the hot topic is creating healthy boundaries, around protecting your time and space and your energy. And sometimes you're just in a situation where the best thing you can do is honestly leave. You always have the capacity to say like, no, this is not for me, and remove yourself from the situation. Because quite frankly, it wasn't going to change. I wasn't going to change the entire, way Housewives is run, which is, to make women fight against each other. When I figured out that was the objective of the show, I was like, oh, I'm out.
Is there anything you wish you knew before you started filming?
I really went on the show because I thought it would be fun and I would make new friends and go on these trips and have so much fun. I wish I knew that most of the other women that I filmed with never had an interest in being my friend. I was naive to think that some of them would be my friend, and I was nice to them and let my guard down and, talked to them, treated them as if they were my friends. And then when the show came out and you see what they're saying about you behind closed doors, it becomes very obvious to you that they never considered you their friend. And it's almost embarrassing, because here I was, telling people that they're so nice and they're so great. And then the show airs and it's like, oh no, she never liked me. She's like talking bad about me the whole time.
That's very challenging. Do you feel that there was a good return on investment for you for being there for one season, or not really?
Yeah, in terms of return on investment, that's always tricky with these things. And probably everyone listening up to this point is like, oh my God, she's so whiny. Like she's just complaining the whole time. But really, it was a very eye-opening experience because I've never done anything like that before. I was the quintessential nerd. I graduated from college when I was 19, graduated from medical school when I was 23, met my husband the same year I graduated from medical school, got married and had kids. And I never did anything crazy, never, got in trouble. I was such a good girl. So almost in many ways, going on Real Housewives was a little act of rebellion for me, like a midlife crisis, oh my God, Tiffany's going on Housewives. Is she okay? And it gave me the platform to talk about issues that are important to me, like empowering other women professionals, pay disparity, advocating for the AAPI community. This was back in COVID times when, AAPI people were experiencing a lot of hate and violence. So I'm grateful actually to Bravo, to have been given this opportunity. It wasn't what I thought it would be. Sometimes I look at the cast members on the other cities, not Dallas, but Miami, Beverly Hills, New York. And I think to myself, if I had lived in one of those cities and these could have been my castmates, I feel like it would have turned out differently, But we'll never get to go back and do that because that's not the way life happens. But overall, my sentiment is one of gratitude for being given that opportunity. But then after I saw it for what it was, I no longer wanted to be a part of it.
Did the show open up any business opportunities that you didn't have before?
I mean, not really. I mean, it's not like everyone's calling my office for me to put them to sleep all of a sudden. I'm an anesthesiologist. No one really wants my services. What they want is the surgery or to have their baby. And I just happen to be like a necessary byproduct of their hospital stay. If I were a plastic surgeon or a dermatologist or like a concierge OBGYN that didn't take insurance, and was doing like hormone therapy and stuff like that, I'm sure that the show would have increased my business profits and revenue. But unfortunately, I didn't really get to capitalize on that.
What about your other businesses? Do you feel it helped?
Yeah, I think it helped. Yeah, like my candles were very popular when the show was airing. I think that year I sold more candles than I've ever sold before. And then it kind of slowly dropped off a little bit after that. So there's definitely like the TV effect where you're just on TV and people like you and they just want to buy whatever product you're selling. But like for me personally, that's not where I was going with this. I think sometimes people join Housewives because they have a product that they want to get out there, and there's no better platform to showcase your product than a show, where you're on TV week after week after week for several months. I mean, the perfect example is Bethany Frankel, who, has her whole skinny girl empire that she sold for, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. And really Housewives was the platform that gave her that household name recognition to sell her products. I guess I wasn't smart enough to do that. And also, I don't think you can do that on one season of anything. I think the audience has to stay with you for, 3, 5, 7 seasons to do that. So yeah, I always joke that I lost money my season of Housewives because there was a few days I had to take PTO vacation days because they needed us to travel. So I needed to take Friday off to, go to Austin with the ladies. And when I don't work, I don't make money. And also they don't pay for like any of the parties that you host or like hair and makeup or outfits. So I basically just like broke even from my Housewives money. Good thing I'm still a doctor.
Definitely. Do you feel that you learned anything useful for you that you will use for the rest of your life in terms of storytelling, persuasion, conflict resolution, audience engagement, understanding what audience wants?
Yeah, I never behaved according to what I thought the audience wanted. I talked to some other people who were housewives and all of their advice was like, just be yourself. Because first of all, it's very difficult to not be yourself, right? You always have to like stay one step ahead. And I always tell people like, I don't lie because I don't have a good enough memory to lie and remember what lie I told you and then like keep that going, So I just tell the truth because the truth is the truth. You know what I mean? It's just not worth lying. And so with Housewives, I never tried to present myself in a certain way. I was just who I was. And some people liked me and some people didn't. And that's how life works. No one has a 100% approval rating. I mean, the president of the United States doesn't even have much of a barely over half approval rating. You know what I mean? And so, yes, it was hurtful when I would read certain comments about people like attacking my character or commenting on my physical appearance or the way I sounded, because I can't really change my voice. I guess I could take some voice lessons for my voice to be less annoying, but people would just say like, oh my God, her voice is so annoying, or why does she talk like that? Or why does she dress like that? Or, she acts like she's so much smarter than everyone. And maybe I came across that way, but I wasn't intending to. I think sometimes people read into your actions based on their previous experiences. So I just kind of threw my hands in the air and said like, you know what? You can't please them all. So I'll just focus on the people who like me and who I can help, and everyone else, too bad.
Do you feel that you learned something about yourself that you really value now knowing?
I mean, I learned that I don't like to be around toxic people. I really credit Housewives for giving me a voice. because before that, I never really stuck up for myself. When I was a child and I had just moved from China to the United States and I was bullied in elementary school, I never stuck up for myself, and no one else stuck up for me either, not even my parents. Our MO in my house was to sort of like keep your head down, don't make a fuss, like remove yourself from the situation and study harder so you can have a good job and earn money. Like that was just what my parents ingrained in me. But on Housewives, when I was bullied and treated inequitably, I actually stood up for myself, which I was like, oh, like, who is this person coming out? Like, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the COVID and we had just been pent up, or they just said the perfect right thing to trigger me, you know, but I stood up for myself and I talked back. And in many ways, I was proud of myself for standing up to the bullies this time.
I can totally resonate with it. I remember when I was a child, there were so many situations, but one example, someone punched me. I was just a very young girl. Someone punched me in the face and I had this big black eye because I wasn't Russian. So my father wasn't Russian. He was from Azerbaijan. And I did not stood up for myself, same as you. And I came home and my father started laughing. So no one stood up for myself even at home. And you are very right. It's very difficult to do it for the first time as an adult. What did it feel like?
I mean, I was like proud of myself. I didn't really know where it came from. Like all of a sudden I just had all this pent up anger. It was like I felt like that small child again being picked on and called ching chong on the playground, and like all this anger, like from 35 years ago, just like came boiling up. And, back then my English was not so good. I learned English when I was 6, when I moved here. So I didn't even have the vocabulary to say something smart to the bully. I would just cry and run away. But now my vocabulary is great because I went to a lot of school. So like all my words just came out and, without being physical or anything, but I just lashed my words out at them. And I think they were surprised too, because I think they thought that I was just going to like lay down and take it. She's the Asian one. She's quiet. She's demure. She's subservient. Because generally when I'm out in a group of people, like I'm not the one making the most noise, like, look at me, I'm the life of the party. I actually prefer in a group setting to be like a bystander and a follower, like, oh, where are we going? Like you make the plans and then I can just follow along. That's great. Because in the operating room, I have to be the leader. And in my home, with my husband and my children and my dogs and planning vacation and, getting everything in the house in order, like I'm also the leader. So if there's a capable leader that I can follow, I love to be a good follower sometimes.
I definitely understand what you mean. How did you maintain self-confidence, composure when facing criticism and public judgment, but also conflict with people you were filming with?
Yeah, it just depends on the day. Sometimes I'd go home and cry to my husband and just be like, they're being so mean to me. I hate it. I want to quit. And then some days I felt strong and I could deal with it and give it back to them, or tell myself like their opinion doesn't even matter. Like, who are these people? It's always the people sitting in the stands that want to say something about the people inside the arena. Like I'm putting myself out there. I'm doing a new opportunity. I'm trying to grow my brand, and you want to like say something. Well, what are you doing? Like, I don't see you doing much. It's always those people on the sidelines that want to say about the people on the field. And I'm like, well, at least I'm on the field. You know what I mean?
Being on the show, once you left, did it alter what you decided to do with your career?
No, after I quit the show, I just went back to my life. I went back to work at the hospital. I went back to spending time with my husband and my children. After the show, though, I did start contemplating writing my book. So the show showed in 2021, and I started kind of marinating and having the idea of writing a memoir with a personal development angle in 2022. So it's crazy now. It's like 3 years later and the book is coming out because that's how long it took me to write. It's a very difficult process. But I think the show like pushed me to do the book because I felt like I learned so much and I had a lot of rich experiences and lessons to share with other people.
As you were writing the book, did you learn anything about yourself during that time?
As I wrote the book, I reflected about my childhood and I was like, I kind of am pretty resilient. We're always, I think, as female professionals, sometimes hard on ourselves. Like if someone else heard the things we say to ourselves, they would say that we were very mean. And as I was writing the book, I kind of was like, wow, I've overcome a lot. And also, my parents have overcome a lot and I'm incredibly grateful to them for everything that they've given to me. It's weird when you're writing a book that's a memoir, and you're kind of writing everything that's happened in your life. It's like going through therapy, again, because you have to really get in touch with your feelings about the things that happened in order to properly communicate those events to the reader. So it was a very cathartic process, I would say, writing the book.
What is your definition of joy? Because joy is something that you really focused on as part of your project, and especially within the context of leadership, being a leader, career. And why do you think so many high achievers struggle to find it?
I think a lot of high achievers from childhood equate our self-worth with achievement and success and the outward signs of success. So joy seems like an elusive concept because my parents didn't prioritize joy. They didn't ask like, oh, how was your day at school? Do you feel happy? Or what did you do that brought you joy? No, my parents never asked questions like that. They would ask, what did you get on your math test? Did you win the spelling bee? It was all like outward achievement based metrics. And so then you learn in your mind, like, oh, that's what should make me happy. But then you reach your for me, it was my mid 30s, maybe almost 40. And I just realized that I had been filling my bucket with the wrong things. Because, I achieved most of the things I set out to. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying that as a matter of fact. I graduated early, always the top of my class, always high scores. I had this nice faculty position with a 401k and health insurance. As far as my parents were concerned, I'd made it. But something didn't feel complete to me. I felt like there was a side of me that wanted to do something outside of the hospital, something that was creative, something that utilized my sense of humor, and something that allowed me to connect to other people. Because at the hospital, I take great care of my patients, but most of the time they're asleep. So I'm not talking to a whole lot of people during the day, or else they would think I'm crazy. So it's a lonely job, I think. And I wanted to do something else outside of medicine where I could feel like a connection to a person. The first thing I tried was social media because you think I can connect to other people, but it's also very superficial on social media. Although I've made a few friends through social media who are now my friends in real life. And, we call each other and see each other. They come to my conference, things like that. But the way I initially reached out to them was on social media. So I think social media is a great tool if you use the tool correctly and don't allow it to become your master, which a lot of us struggle with. But yeah, I feel like so many professional people live according to a checklist that when they check everything off, then they'll finally receive the joy. And the thing that I'm trying to teach through my book is that the joy comes in the journey of getting to the finish line, and it's not a destination. Joy is a journey and not a destination. And I wish I had known that earlier because I think I would have enjoyed it more. But I was just rushing through everything, rushing through school, missing out on experiences because I thought that there would be a pot of gold waiting for me at the finish line. And then you get there and there is no pot of gold and you're kind of resentful that maybe you could have run the race a little slower or taken some sights in or, stopped and smelled the roses along the way. So I wrote the book so that maybe other people can learn that before it's too late for them.
You mentioned that you realized you were filling your bucket with all the wrong things. What were the right things you identified you should have been filling your bucket with?
For me, it's gratitude. I always tell myself, like, I get to do something. I don't have to do something. Like, I get to go to the gym. My body is healthy. I don't have any physical ailments. Like, it's a privilege to go to the gym. So I never complain about going to the gym. And I think it's just a small, subtle shift in your mindset and how you choose to see the world and how you move about the world all of a sudden changes your perspective on everything, right? So a lot of mindset work I've done. I fill my bucket with connection, like real human connection, not superficial, like small talk or how many followers do you have? Nobody cares. Well, some people care, but I don't care about that. I care about having deep connections to my friends and family, the people that I've known for decades, my children, my husband, my stepchildren. These are the people that I want to surround myself with. I would say community, just helping out the community if there's, something that's devastated the community, or I am in a nonprofit organization that helps women in the community who've been affected by domestic violence. We help them get away from their abuser, make sure they have things that they need, help them re-enter the workforce, because some of them for a long time were caretakers and they haven't had a job outside of the house for many years. And so we provide them some interview training and give them some clothes so that they can look professional when they enter the workforce. I don't know. It's just all these small things that center on connection and gratitude and laughter instead of like achievement and success and awards. Because in many ways, I had those things and I still felt empty. So then I had to make a conscious shift towards going towards things that brought me joy.
What are some of the key things you had to shift in terms of your mindset, building on what you already shared?
I think just sort of like I went to so many conferences. I'm trying to think of, I've spent like hundreds of thousands of dollars doing executive coaching, joining masterminds, and going to conferences. I feel like the last 5 years I was on some like, not spiritual, it's more like actually mindset and business. I think I wasn't dreaming big enough. I thought that, when I was 30, I would just live out the rest of my life in an operating room, taking care of patients, come home, take care of my kids, and that would be it. And it was fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But then I discovered that there's so much more out to the world. And, sometimes people will write to me or comment on something that like they look up to me or I inspire them. And like, that's still kind of crazy to me. Because in many ways, I still feel like that scared little girl coming from China, not making a fuss, always trying to lay low and not be seen. And now I'm like putting myself out there to be seen and to have a voice and tell other women to rise up and empower each other instead of fighting with each other and dragging each other down. It's just such a subtle, but important shift in my mindset that I've had over the last several years.
You mentioned before that there are ways to use social media in a way that is good for you. What recommendations could you share with people listening right now who are considering starting to build a personal brand?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, you have to engage with other people. So sometimes I do social media coaching. I take private clients and I just finished a cohort of group coaching. But you can't just like post something and then be like, oh, nobody's interacting with my post. I mean, why should they? First of all, the algorithm isn't even showing it to anyone. Like you have to cultivate people coming to your page, which means you have to go to their page and like and comment and share their stuff, sort of like making friends, right? Like on the playground or as an adult at the bar, you have to go up to someone and, compliment them on something, or, oh, I see you're wearing a hat from this university. Did you go there? Like talk to them, right? Social media is the same way. People just post and they're like, nobody's watching my stuff. I'm like, well, why should they? You're not doing anything. And then I always say, like, figure out what your secret sauce is, right? Because there's like a million, people on social media. I mean, more than that. What's special about you and what do you want to post about? Because if it's inauthentic to you, if you feel like you have to take time out of your day and like, oh, I have to post something on social media, then it becomes a job. Then it's not fun. So just be yourself. If you cook a lot, set up a tripod and today I'm making this dish, but I sub the noodles with zucchini. That's more healthy. Okay, cool. You have recipes to share. For me, when I first started on social media, it was all fashion because I was actually trying to escape the medical world. And people would be like, how come you're a doctor, but you never talk about medical stuff? And I'm like, oh, I didn't know you wanted that. Like I was just trying to do stuff. Like I just got off work. So I don't want to talk about work anymore. I want to, try on some pretty dresses and talk about that. So, my advice would just be to be yourself, figure out what your secret sauce is and try to capitalize on that to grow a loyal and engaged following, by posting, content that resonates with your audience.
And in terms of platforms, what do you think makes sense for people listening to us right now who are primarily leaders within large organizations? They want to build a professional, personal brand.
It depends on what your goal is. I think for the professional, I would recommend LinkedIn because if someone's looking for a job or they want to see where your past work experience has been, like LinkedIn is the social media for professionals. They recently changed the algorithm and now the LinkedIn algorithm is prioritizing videos, which is odd because most of the time people on LinkedIn aren't posting videos, right? But they're trying to catch up to like Instagram Reels and TikTok. I would say if you had to pick one main one, it would probably be Instagram. I think that's the most popular. It has the most users. TikTok tends to skew younger. I would not recommend TikTok for most people unless I talked to them and they had a very specific reason they were using TikTok. And then Facebook, the best use of Facebook is for the private groups, the closed groups. Like I belong to a couple of mom doctor groups and travel groups, and you go in there to sort of ask for crowdsourcing an idea for like, oh, I have a vacation in June. My kids are 3 and 5. Like, where did you go that's kid friendly? Like, and you get, stuff like that. But like Facebook outside of the private groups, I feel like isn't really that popular, and Facebook tends to skew older, like grandma's on Facebook, like grandma wants to see, kid pictures, vacation pictures. And then there's the smaller ones, Twitter, X is for, short things, news. Like if there's an organization that you follow and you want up-to-date minute news, that one is the best one for, immediate access to information that's not pictures or videos. And then Snapchat, like the kids do Snapchat. I don't even do it. I mean, there's so many apps these days. It's crazy. But my recommendation would be like Instagram and LinkedIn.
What are your thoughts on YouTube?
Oh, YouTube for long format videos. I forgot about YouTube. Okay, so YouTube is for long format, which is excellent if you are trying to teach something that requires more than like 60 or 90 seconds. So yeah, YouTube is like, I call it YouTube University. I have an executive assistant and a social media manager, and sometimes they'll ask me something and I'm like, I don't know, go YouTube it. Like, when I was little, if I needed to access a piece of information, I mean, my parents bought this thing called like Encyclopedia Britannica. You know what I mean? Sometimes when I was bored over the summer, I read the encyclopedia. Now I'm giving away what a big dork I am. Now you can just like Google it or go on YouTube and there's some guy that is explaining it to you, how to code or, how to create a custom GPT. Like you can learn anything on YouTube and people should take advantage of that. And then they have YouTube Shorts, which really is just trying to compete with TikTok and Instagram Reels. But yeah, YouTube is great, both as a content creator because of the long format. You have time to explain concepts and teach and show way more than, short form video, which generally is 60 seconds or less. And it's great as a consumer. I have like really bad ADHD, so I am not on YouTube because I can't make a video that long. Like I'll ramble and I'll forget what I was talking about. I'm like, what was I supposed to be doing again? Like I'm really good for short content, but like I don't ever make YouTube videos and then the editing. This is the thing people don't realize about being a content creator on social media. It's not really the filming that's that difficult. Everybody can set up a tripod or ring light and press record. It's the editing that's a pain and doing the closed captions and cutting and doing the transition and it's the editing. That's like where I have so many drafts in my phone right now of content that I've like made, but then my ADD like got the best of me or the phone rang or I had a Zoom and then I just never like finished creating that piece of content. So one of these days I'm going to like sit down and finish all the drafts.
You manage so much. So you have family, you have very demanding career as a doctor, and then you also do all the other things. How do you manage all of this?
Lots of caffeine and a will to succeed. I don't know. People ask me this question and I wish I had a more eloquent answer. But I'm extremely organized. I have a lot of great help. My husband's great. I have a nanny. I have an assistant. But at the end of the day, the buck stops at me, like, the book writing, the social media, the speaking engagements, working in the operating room. I mean, I wear a lot of different hats. And the reason is because I want to. I like wearing all the different hats that I do. If I didn't like something, I wouldn't do it anymore. So I think it's just staying organized and I don't know, a sheer determination to get things done.
How do you manage to stay organized while also having challenges related to attention deficit disorder?
Yeah, I tell people I have ADHD and I have OCD. Like, I don't know what happened, but when I was little, I used to have like compulsive behaviors. I used to like turn the light on like a certain number of times and I used to open my drawer a certain number of times. I kind of just outgrew those. I never was medicated for it. My parents, I don't even think they knew. They didn't pay attention to me that much. And then the ADHD really set in like adult. Like, I don't think I had it as a child. I could like sit still and be quiet, but like as an adult, I feel like I can't focus on anything. Like, and I get interrupted so easily and I forget what I was doing and I have like 50 tabs open and then I'll just be telling a story to somebody and I'll be like, what was I saying? Like, where was I going with this? And they're like, I don't know. And and my friend was like, girl, that's not ADHD. You're just like perimenopausal. And I was like, oh no, like, what do I do? What's the solution? So I don't know. I'm just over here self-diagnosing, and making excuses for my behavior probably. But I do know lately, like I'm very scatterbrained.
Anything that you found that works for you in terms of staying organized? Because I know a number of people who have similar challenges. I'm pretty sure I myself have very serious case of attention deficit disorder from childhood. So I completely understand what you're talking about. And I'm constantly looking for ways to be more productive, more organized, and really being focused on being organized. So I was wondering if you have any tricks, any things you learned, figured out for yourself that really work. that people could try for themselves?
No, I mean, we need to ask your listeners to drop their management systems, like having a good CRM. My assistant certainly helps keep me focused. I have a very strict calendar. I block out my time in like 15-minute increments. And I always say, like, don't make it a 45-minute meeting if it can be a 30-minute meeting. I like efficiency. Like, whenever I hire anyone to be on my team, I tell them, like, efficiency and productivity and accuracy are key. I'm sure I sound like a wonderful boss to work for, but, I'm an anesthesiologist, right? So I expect precision and no mistakes. Like, if I make mistakes, people die. So I expect that from my team as well. I set a lot of alarms. I have a journal. I mean, I don't have any magic tools really. It's just kind of the old school calendar management and setting alarms. I set an alarm like 5 minutes before a Zoom meeting so I can like go to the bathroom, grab some water, sit down, get comfy, and start my meetings on time. And then I just block out my day, like from 7 o'clock in the morning until 6 or 7 at night.
And how do you ensure you're getting sufficient rest so you maintain your good health and have energy for all the things you demand of yourself?
I love biohacking. Like, I'm just going to biohack my way to be 100. I think, I prioritize sleep. I don't just give other people sleep, but I actually make myself sleep a lot. I aim for 8 hours a night. That's usually not achievable. Sometimes it's closer to 6. Sometimes if I'm on call at the hospital, it's like 2. But I do believe that you have to take care of yourself. People always take their health for granted until they don't have it. I know that more than anyone because I work at a big hospital, have a lot of cancer patients and trauma patients. So I try to eat healthy. I do the 80-20 rule, which is that I'm good 80% of the time. And then 20% of the time I have tacos and margaritas or, whatever food I'm craving that day. I try to exercise. I try to go out, walk the dogs, touch some grass, get some sunlight. I take a lot of supplements. Like, it's ridiculous. My kids were like, "Mommy, why do you take so many pills?" And I'm like, it's all supplements. Like, my vitamin D is low. It was winter. Everyone around me was sick. So I was taking all this zinc. I have a omega, omega 3, for heart health. And then I have this other one I take called Mitapure from Timeline. Like, every day, I'm not lying to you, I'm taking 20 pills. And people are like, "Is it working?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I didn't get sick this winter when like all my kids and husband were sick and coughing, had the flu. I was like the only one in the house that didn't get sick. So I'm like, I don't know if it's working. I can't tell, but I take all these pills every day."
You mentioned over the last 5 years, you learned a lot from different masterminds and so on. I also invest scary amounts of money, similar to you. I think we have probably been into many things together. So I wanted to ask you, any things that you learned that really were eye-opening for you during those 5 years?
It's funny. Like, we go to all these conferences, all these masterminds, and then at the end of the day, people are like, "What did you learn?" And I'm like, I learned you just got to put yourself out there, take risks, surround yourself with good people, dust yourself off. If you fall down, get up and keep going. They're like, "That's what your hundreds of thousands of dollars taught you." And I'm like, yeah, basically. I mean, if you want me to sum it up, I have a lot of stories to tell you. And I will tell you, like, going to a conference where there's other, professional people who are spending money to better themselves is the best place to make new friends, right? Like, because you've kind of already pre-selected that group and they're like willing to learn and consider new ideas. And like, I just want to go to conferences and make new friends because all my current close friends that I've made in the last 5 or 10 years were from conferences. Other than that, my friends were from like medical school, college, middle school, things like that. But all my new friends are from conferences.
What is maybe 1, 2, 3 things you want people to take away from your book?
I want people to know that joy is in the journey and not in the destination. please don't be like me and focus on the destination while ignoring the beautiful journey that you're on and all its complexities. I want people to stop the cycle of compare and despair. Stop looking at what someone else has and what you don't. You don't know what they've gone through to get there. And appearances can be deceiving. Someone who you think is doing well and their business is thriving may actually be on the verge of bankruptcy. You just never know. In any case, it's none of your business, and don't compare yourself to where someone else is at. If you've just started on social media and somebody else has X amount of followers and you don't have it, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Only compare yourself to yourself, not to anyone else. And surround yourself with good people. I know what it's like to be around bad people, toxic people that just drain my energy and make me want to shrivel up and cry. And I know what it's like to be around good people who inspire me and empower me and are doing things that are innovative. And I'm like, oh, wow, like that's so amazing. You know, I'm cheering for you. There's no jealousy. There's no competition. It's just a whole different feeling of when you're around your people than when you're not. And you know, it's like when you find your spouse and people are like, how do you know if they're the one? Like, you just do. Yeah.
Tiffany, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being so honest, so open. You are incredible.
Thank you for having me.
Where can our listeners learn more about you, buy your book, anything you want to share?
You can find me on all the social media platforms at Tiffany Moon MD. My website is Tiffany Moon MD, and the book is called Joy Prescriptions and is available everywhere books are sold or on my website, joyprescriptions.com.
Our guest today again has been Dr. Tiffany Moon. Check out her book, Joy Prescriptions. And our podcast sponsor today is strategytraining.com. If you want to strengthen your strategy skills, you can get the overall approach used in well-managed strategy studies. It is a free download, and you can get it at firmsconsulting.com/overall approach. You can also get McKinsey and BCG winning resume, which is another free download at firmsconsulting.com/resume PDF. And the last gift is a copy of a book we co-authored with some of our clients, and you can get it at firmsconsulting.com/gift. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and I'm looking forward to connect with you all next time.